overall themes that we've noticed are, I wanted clarified for our Saturday virtual session. We have been running our listening sessions like regular meetings because we want to have as many board members there as possible. And according to Open Meetings Act, if we have 3 or more board members there, we need to post it and treat it like a regular meeting. Because there's no longer a pandemic, we cannot hold an official virtual meeting. So we have a couple options. First of all, how many people were going to be able to be there on Saturday anyway? This might be a completely irrelevant issue.
I was
50-50.
Okay, well then there we go, there's our solution. Okay. So if there are 2 board members who are present, 2 board members can log on to the virtual session, not violate anything related to OMA, and conduct the listening session. And then because it's virtual, it'll be recorded for you guys to be able to view later. Does that works?
Works.
Okay. The other option would have been that we would have been able to all come together in the boardroom, meet in person in the boardroom, but then also conduct it virtually for those who aren't able to attend in person. But since it's Saturday mornings in summer are hard, and so I was hoping that maybe like people who are on vacation can tune in from the beach. I don't know. That's what everybody wants to do. So that's what we'll do. Max and I will be the representatives for the board at that meeting on Saturday. We'll log in through the link as normal, and then the recording will be available.
Just to follow up on that,
yes.
Are we pumping out any advertisement about that meeting, any additional?
I think Jody will send out another Skyward update.
Yeah, we'll post on the live feed tomorrow. So
and one went out on Friday.
One out on Friday.
The link is posted in the listening session section of the website.
Was the link included on Friday when that went out?
Yes, because we had the discussion about it was working in preview mode. So yes.
Okay.
It was.
Other questions on Saturday? All right, and then our final one in person will be Wednesday, July 26th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Seymour Community Building, and that will be in person, back to in-person conversation. Okay, we've had 3 so far of the 5, and over those 3 sessions, I was kind of hoping we could talk through some big ideas or some themes so that we're not just continually rehashing what we've heard, but really narrowing our focus instead of it just being, we heard this, we heard this, we heard this. Really focusing on what the big ideas are that people are saying in our community. So personally, I identified 3. You'll notice in the board packet, there was also an application to be part of the Mahomet Music Fest. That would just entail us having a table there and having some information for people to get involved in the strategic planning process. That's one of the things that, one of the big themes was overall communication from the district and really getting our voices heard. And so you might have noticed that in the packet. And if everybody's okay with that, we'll go ahead and fill that out. Max is already committed to being there all weekend long, sun up to sundown. So we can just visit them with our funnel cakes and say.
We need to come up with some information, but I will.
Yes. So real quick, is everybody okay with doing a table?
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone.
Yep.
Okay, so.
And people are welcome to like.
I'll help you. I'll be there. Don't worry. We can set up shifts.
Yeah, we'll
I've got a candidate.
We'll requisition the real Bulldog tent, I think.
Oh, that's a good
We own a couple of those.
Better. Yes.
Anybody who has ideas for materials, we'll meet prior to that and come up with them.
Are we gonna do a dunk tank?
You're gonna work that part of
There'll be one there.
That's a long line, Max.
Okay, so I jotted down 3 big themes. This is really just kind of a jumping off point, really intended to be a jumping off point, but one big theme that I've heard over and over in those last 3 sessions is a stronger partnership with the Village of Mahomet, really with clarity on commercial growth and helping people understand why Mahomet is growing so much commercially and how that impacts tax revenues, and their goals for commercial growth, the goals for the number of residents, which is going to then in turn impact school needs, and then long-range planning for the village as a whole. Like, what are they aiming? What's their goal number of residents in Mahomet? Because that influences commercial growth because businesses want to come to places that are more highly populated. So that was one theme. A second theme I noticed was long-range planning and long-range conversations, particularly with regard to facilities and land purchases. People have been saying a lot that they don't want just tell us what the next thing is. They want to know, okay, this is the next thing, but then step 2 and step 3 and step 4 down the road. And then the third theme that I noticed was overall communication. So how to get in touch with people who are not on social media, how to get in touch with people who maybe don't have kids in the district and don't get emails, utilizing newspapers, utilizing emails, utilizing in-person events, maybe even having somebody to manage social media accounts for the district, somebody who can really take on communication as their job. Those 3 themes are really intended to kind of drive the strategic planning process. These conversations are intended to drive the strategic planning process. From that, we'll draw out facilities ideas as well. Does anybody want to add or agree or disagree on any of those topics?
I think the conversations are pretty dominated by facilities, right?
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One, it's by far the biggest issue we're facing. The 2, when you start to get away from facilities and into curriculum, maybe it starts to get a little more political and people are less confident to air those grievances, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I think, or maybe I should just say some thoughts for facilities brainstorm, if that's.
Yeah,
Okay.
for our next one, for our pros and cons.
Yep.
Is that what you want to do? Well, one of the themes that you mentioned was fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
Being really financially.
Yep. Yeah, we have a community that's very passionate about fiscal responsibility and making sure that what we spend money on is something that we actually need and that it's not overdone and that it's very functional as opposed to focused on the form of things. Yeah.
We've heard a lot about building locations, desire by some for proximity of building, the central campus maybe area. That probably is encompassed in that second theme that you identified, long-range conversations in regards to facilities and land purchases. And we're hearing, I find it interesting because some of it kind of conflicts a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. We should move all buildings to a central spot. Well, we can't move all buildings to the central part of town because there's houses. The streets have already been built and they're as wide as they're going to be unless we want the village to take over people's front yards. It's just not a really good way to do that. So that means if we do a central location, we're building buildings somewhere else and moving them. Well, we can't move them all at once. So then during that time, during the 20 or 30 years or whatever it takes to do that, there's separation of buildings. And so I would like to hear, I think, a little more from the community on that and get a feel for what people think is realistic and not realistic. I guess my takeaway from that kind of put some practicality to that is that they feel we should be maybe moving towards a central location, right? We can't be there all at once. And I know, I don't know if you want to talk much about that now or you want to talk about my thoughts there when we get to the next part.
Well, I was gonna say that is one of our pros and cons conversations.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can talk.
I would say another thing that I heard a lot was curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah,
Same on.
and it wasn't really super focused on like a specific thing with the curriculum, other than making sure like kids, especially in the younger grades, that they're being challenged if they, that they're not put in a classroom with other kids that are lower than them. Am I making sense in terms? Yeah, and so that they're being challenged, and if they're not, then to try to figure that out.
So really individualizing education. Thank you.
One thing that was pretty universally agreed upon in the last one was the technology in this room and broadcasting out. So I don't know, I think it was a microphone conversation that we had or acoustics that were maybe difficult to hear.
Yeah.
Well,
Finding a media.
I think we need some.
Like
For
during
board
board
meetings in
meetings,
general.
like even though the microphones are there, the sound isn't always clear.
And those cameras used to move.
Or, yeah, the cameras used to move based on who was talking,
Mhm.
or zoom in on who was talking.
Right.
Well, pandemic's over. They can come in. I'm not trying to be, I mean, honestly, they can come in.
Sure.
We
Yeah, I
welcome
agree.
visitors.
I agree.
It's very
Yeah.
good.
You know, a lot of the conversation comes from the room, low mics in front of the room. I don't know, someone suggested we all have our microphone. I don't know that we need to do that,
Very good.
but we need to work on improving sound. Whatever that entails. Adding mics, repositioning mics, I don't know what the answer is.
One thing
I think we have somebody that could maybe help us figure out.
One thing I do think is helpful with, as far as like with the video and the recording of it, is being able to clip our listening session conversations and our facilities brainstorming conversations, clipping those and resharing those for people so they know like, hey, this is what's been discussed, come share your ideas. So that people,
Yeah.
hopefully we can keep getting correct information out there. Okay.
I don't have anything else to add to that, other than with 2 more sessions left.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping we get a lot more people from the community to come out and voice their inputs. I know everyone's busy, but we've got lots of opportunities, lots of flexible opportunities. These next 2, virtual and the kind of late night one, should hit a lot of those folks that couldn't make the previous ones, or I'm hoping can make it.
All right, as a reminder, this Saturday, 9 to 11 virtual session, the link is posted online. It will also go out through Skyward. And Wednesday, July 26th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the community building. Okay, let's move on to our facilities brainstorm. Jody, will you set the timer for 15 minutes? Let's see how much we can get through in 15 minutes. Since we've already started talking about land purchases, do we want to just keep going with the pros and cons on that one?
Sure.
Because I feel like we've kind of started that. Next, with the future land purchases, what we need to think about is, as a board, as a school district, are we aiming toward eventually having a campus concept where we have all of our buildings and facilities in one central location part of town? Or are we looking to have our schools spread out in order to spread out traffic and spread out people throughout the community and really take advantage of the buildings we already own? So give me some pros and cons there. Or tell me what you like about one or not like about the other.
Well, the pro would be
A pro of campus, I
the
think.
campus idea, yes. And the administrators in the room can help me out with this, but I would imagine it's a lot more efficient to like communicate and meet with one another, to centralize, like from a safety standpoint, centralize like, you know, we have a school resource officer, but he's shared among all the buildings. Well, all the buildings were in one central location. You know, he can easily get from place to place.
Same with the nurse.
Right. Sharing facilities, you know, junior high kids may not have to walk to the high school for something. Well, they would, but it'd be right there. Not that it's very far now, but you get the idea between buildings. So I think from a efficiency and sharing space and knowledge and meeting with one another, I think that's a pro. Cons, it'd be a logistical nightmare to get to that point and extremely expensive, like Max said earlier.
Say more about that.
Well, and you're drawing all the traffic to one
To one place,
right?
right?
So you either got to build a lot of infrastructure before you can do anything, or be in some place where there's infrastructure built and going in that can be modified to handle it.
Can I pause you for a minute
Mhm.
to kind of clarify? It would be expensive if we were going into a space that doesn't have a lot of the infrastructure, but the space that we have here has Like the land that we own across the street, this area has the infrastructure we need, right?
For 2 buildings.
For 2 buildings.
Then potentially, I think it's got a good base that we could do
Potentially more.
potentially to develop. I mean,
But
kind of like I said earlier, we're not going down a wide stage.
So more expensive.
Taking
we were
people's front
going-
yards, right?
Yeah,
But out here, what's went in is good and more could easily be added. So it's, if you went west or north, you'd be starting from scratch.
what did you mean by logistical nightmare? What would be hard logistically?
Well, in the interim, do we use the existing buildings? Can we use the existing buildings?
So you
Traffic.
I think,
like a plan for the interim time,
Yeah.
because like Matt said, we would be able to do a campus all at once.
Interim planning, I guess.
right, you've got to use the existing buildings. You just can't afford to do it all at once.
Another
If you
thing.
wanted to. And then the other piece, I don't know if it's a con, it's a question mark. As you move things to a central campus, what happens to the existing building?
Exactly, yeah, to a couple of really good existing buildings, right? Like, if you're gonna build a campus around this building, then that means you eventually get rid of the high school, and it's not ready to be gotten rid of yet.
But if we're looking 40 years down the road,
Yeah,
You're allocating a lot of money to secure that land than to sit on that for 40 years also.
so it might be more cost effective to just find land that we can get at a good market.
I don't think there's a lot of that around.
I agree, but I'm just thinking, like, if developers around here are like, oh, they're gonna build a campus all around here, the prices of land around here will obviously go higher because they're gonna be like, oh, well, but if we're, and in building, buying land, those conversations are closed session conversations. We obviously aren't gonna talk about what land we're thinking about purchasing and what price, that's not appropriate, but if we were to buy land someplace else, and somebody didn't realize, oh, okay, we're thinking about putting a school there, we might get a better purchase price for that.
But then the minute we announce the price of the surrounding land is gonna go, because people don't want to be there.
That's true.
Yeah, I also share your concern about once those other buildings are phased out and if they were to be moved to a central location, then what happens to that?
Yeah.
We've all kind of heard the backlash of previous
or that, yeah.
buildings being sold and how that didn't go well. Maybe we learn from that and can take something into that, or maybe that's just the reality of that's what happens when you get to that point. I don't know.
Is there such a thing?
We need a central campus, people, and the people who are unhappy that we're still saying it, they need to talk. Because those two things don't line.
Well.
I mean, the existing locations though are in a residential area versus the previous one was more like a downtown corridor. Those being the differences in my view.
Is there such thing as looking too far down the road, to Kyle's point, buying something now, buying land now to help us 50 years from now?
We'll never be,
Is it worth it?
it won't come down.
Yeah, it'll never be cheaper.
Is there
Right.
any,
But in the short term, we kind of hamstring other things ourselves for other things we do.
Justin and Mr. Keith, the last go-round of conversations around land purchasing, did some research into doing a land study.
Yep.
And then we put that on hold because there was a lot of confusion around what does that mean? Are we gonna be asking for more money to buy land now and we need to build a junior high, but we already have land for a junior high? And so we were like, let's just,
And we're
Hold
doing
on.
a referendum right then. So just.
right. So
Well,
from what you learned, Justin, can you refresh my memory? From what you learned, could we do, like, how long would it take to do a quick land study to see, what is even available to purchase? Because some land is already purchased, just not being developed yet. Like, how long is that typically?
or recommendations from somebody, from a professional on where would you even go?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I think we officially met with 3 land surveyors, for lack of a better word. 2 of them being from Northern Illinois, and 1 of them being Farnsworth Group, which is local. At the time, I remember saying that I felt like the Farnsworth Group would be the best choice of the 3 that we talked to, because they were local, they have a relationship with the village, they know our community, they know our surrounding community. It seemed like a wise choice instead of bringing someone in from Northern Illinois that had no idea what was going on down here. As far as how long it would take, basically, the people we talked to, they needed us to define exactly what we wanted them to look into. So, without going back through all the notes that we have, I would say it would probably take a couple months, if I remember correctly, for them to kind of get the ball rolling and kind of figure out some basics for us. Price wise, I can't remember exactly what it is, but they needed us to define exactly what we wanted them.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think they wanted more of a idea on
Yeah.
Like a defined scope of work.
Right. So, yeah, I think all those notes, I think I can find all those, and those are still available to us, so I can look back through those and get some information.
Is that something that you guys would have an interest in hearing from a professional who might, a group who might say, you'd be smart to
Yeah.
look here, or?
I think, well, yes, short answer, yes, but as long as it's in the context of addressing our most immediate need. You know, buying land could be a great thing, but I want to know, how does it fix the capacity issues that we have right now?
Right.
Because that's what's front of mind to everybody. And I'm all for a long-term plan. But if that long-term plan doesn't start with step 1A, more space at the junior high or a junior high, the Lincoln Trail, a Lincoln Trail, then to me, it's not that valuable.
I think there's 2 parts to it. I think there's the we need space soon. Like, we needed it already, part of the plan. But then I think we've got a fair number of folks in the community that say, well, you know, there needs to be more of a long-term look at things. And this may help us to maybe ties all that a little bit and put that. I mean, I don't know. I would kind of like to see Dr. Lee maybe reach out to Farnsworth and just get more of an idea on scope of what they could do and what price and turnaround could be. I don't know that we'd make a firm decision on it tonight, but I think getting more information from them might be very helpful. You know, if it's $40,000 in 2 years, well, that doesn't help us much right now.
Is there, any land in Seymour? Is there any, I mean, have we ever had a school in Seymour, ever?
Yes,
Election similar, yeah.
Huh?
there was a building in Seymour.
Oh, yeah. It's still.
It's still there. It's a manufacturing facility. When we bought this land,
I'm just trying to think.
talk to me later.
It's a good idea, like outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But, and that's why I kind of want somebody who's not gonna think of it,
But
to look at it and say, here's what you should consider.
I'm not gonna bridge the gap between the different factions that vote for or against something, saying, this is our immediate need, this is what we're presenting, but also as a part of that package, we would like to allocate some funds to secure some land for the loan, because you would hear that like, you know, like you said, either we only are gonna do this, or we need to do something that's, you know, laid out for forever.
Yeah.
But maybe if you combine those in some way, there's gotta be some balance of the two that might appeal to more people.
A good question for future meetings would be, you know, if you voted no, or even if you're on the fence, what are some key components to a potential referendum or a solution that would either tip you to the yes side or even further to the yes side, to the point where they could advocate strongly for it? I don't know that we've phrased it that way before, to like think of like some real quick hitters. Okay, 1, I want to see this. 2, I want to see that. That may be a good idea for the next couple meetings.
I feel like a big thing that we've heard from people is that they didn't like the idea of the junior high being demolished or not having a plan for the junior high, or they were under the impression that we're giving it away. So they didn't like that idea. And but the challenge is you have people who are like, I want a new high school, turn the high school into a junior high, turn the junior high into another elementary, which is a huge amount of money because we don't have land for that. But then you have, and then you have people on the other end of the spectrum who are saying, I want to spend as little as possible. So just put in some more portables and add on some classrooms and be done. And so like, it's hard because you have completely conflicting ideas. So yeah, it'd be a good idea to ask that and see what we hear.
Yeah.
Okay, we only have a minute and a half. So we're not gonna jump into any other ones. Are there any other pros and cons for campus versus spread out schools?
Real quick, I just want to go back to the land survey thing. I think it would be beneficial to talk to somebody to get that outside perspective. Because sometimes they can bring us an outside perspective that we haven't thought of. So I think that'd be beneficial.
And what's our communication like with the village?
We are actually gonna set up a joint meeting soon.
Okay.
If we get some
Yeah, we're
dates
looking at
together.
August dates.
When you say joint meeting, what do you mean?
Our board and their board, to have conversations around, here's what's coming up with us for our strategic planning. They can share with
All
us.
of us?
Yeah,
Okay.
they can share with us what they're thinking as far as development and TIF districts.
Awesome.
August, we're looking at. So typically in past, we've had 1 or 2 joint meetings a year with their board. The last year, the board hasn't wanted to meet with them. We typically also have regular meetings between their leadership and our leadership. Dr. Lee would meet,
Like monthly?
monthly. Okay. I've been in those, Sunny will where we participate in some of those. You will hear things that come out of those meetings. And the thing that came out of the last meeting was, we're hearing from the community, and really from our board, it's more than past time to have a joint meeting again.
Awesome. I agree.
Can you, so I'm hearing kind of a general consensus that people are okay with Dr. Lee reaching out to Farnsworth and kind of getting a sense of timeline and cost, maybe?
Yep.
Maybe you can kind of explain where we are in the process of overcrowding and that we've got a couple of things about it. Also, Dr. Lee, I don't know, I think I'm hearing as well, one of the biggest concerns is what, if we do decide to do a campus idea, what would we do with the existing buildings? Have you worked with school districts that's happened to, where they've outgrown buildings, built new ones, what do they do with the other buildings?
Generally sell
Who buys?
them. I sold one to a church.
Okay.
In a previous,
Okay.
position.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.